Hi, this is Ed Fitzpatrick. If you enjoy local politics as much as I do, be sure to join our friends at Rhode Island PBS for the show A Lively Experiment. Hosted by Jim Hummel, the weekly series features journalists, pundits, and politicians debating the stories and issues that matter most to us Rhode Islanders. Tune in to A Lively Experiment and be part of the conversation. Fridays at 7 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS and wherever you get your podcasts. From the Boston Globe, this is Rhode Island Report. I'm Ed Fitzpatrick. Welcome back to the podcast where we bring you big conversations from our very small state. Last week, President Trump proposed cutting more than $150 billion in federal spending next fiscal year. The cuts would axe a range of programs related to climate, education, health, and housing. U.S. Representative Seth Magaziner is here to talk about that proposal and the impact on a local nonprofit that feeds starving children. Congressman Magaziner, thank you for joining us today.
Great to be back.
Let's start with President Trump's proposed budget cuts. They total $163 billion, just announced Friday. Which one concerns you the most and why?
There's so much, and just the absolute cruelty behind the president's budget's priorities, I think, are very telling. So absolutely guts USAID, absolutely, eliminate the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, absolutely guts the NIH and the life-saving research that is done here in Rhode Island and across the country to try to find a cure for diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's. Deep, deep cuts to domestic programs like that, while at the same time plussing up significantly funding on the defense side. The good news is that historically, under both Democratic and Republican presidents, including the first Trump administration, the president's budget is ignored by Congress, and Congress writes the budget from scratch. Based on some of the early feedback that I've been hearing from not just Democratic, but even Republican colleagues in Congress, I hope that will be the case again. But it's a window into what the president's priorities are, and those priorities are tremendously misguided.
Yeah, what are you hearing from the Republicans? Because Democrats don't have a majority in either house, so it's going to be key what the Republicans think. You don't have to name names, but what are you hearing?
It varies. It runs the gamut. Importantly, so the budget that the president came out with, that is the budget for next year. There's something that's much more immediate and urgent that we are dealing with right now, which is this tax bill that the president and congressional Republicans are trying to move. And this is the president's attempt to extend the tax cuts that mostly benefited the rich that he first put into place in 2016 in his first term. In order to get that bill of tax cuts, mostly for the rich, passed through the Senate with just 50 votes, they need to make an equal offsetting number of cuts. And that is where the Republicans are proposing deep, deep cuts to Medicaid and SNAP in particular. This would be devastating. So the Medicaid cuts, for example, could be as high as $800 billion. Nearly a third of Rhode Islanders get their health insurance from Medicaid. Yeah. If these cuts go through, not only will it hurt the thousands of Rhode Islanders who get Medicaid insurance, but also would hurt healthcare providers. So nursing homes would be losing revenue and might have to shut down. Community health centers, hospitals. So even if you're not on Medicaid yourself, your health center or your nursing home could be shut down as a result of this. And I bring this up because this is all coming to a head in the next couple of weeks. This is the main event right now, what we are focused on. Because we have been so vocal about this, because we have been haranguing our Republican colleagues, I'm hopeful that some cracks are starting to show. Like a few weeks ago, I went on Fox News to talk about this because we're just trying to make noise everywhere we can. And I was waiting for my turn to go on the segment, and Jim Justice, the Republican senator from West Virginia, was on right before me. And even he was saying, well, we got a lot of people on Medicaid in my state. We got to be careful about this. And so I think it's starting to dawn on some of these Republican members that if they kick thousands of their own constituents off of health care or cut food benefits or cut education in order to pay for tax cuts for the rich, they're going to pay for it in the midterms. But we got to keep the pressure on. Like, this is the key time. And so this is what we are talking about every day in Congress and at home.
Yeah, what can Rhode Island's congressional delegation, you and others, do to prevent this from happening? Is it putting pressure on the Republican colleagues?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. So there's an inside game and an outside game. So the outside game is making as much public noise as we can. And I've lost count now of how many press conferences and events Jack, Sheldon, Gabe, and I have done on Medicaid over the last couple months, trying to highlight this in all kinds of ways, right? Like we've done press conferences at nursing homes, at community health centers, national press as well. Again, I said I've gone on Fox News. I know all of us in the congressional delegation have been doing national press and social media as well. But then inside the building, yeah, I mean, we are haranguing our Republican colleagues, particularly the ones who we know have districts that are high Medicaid and SNAP populations, and just being like, what are you guys thinking here? Because you know what they could do? Like, and I tell them this every day. I say, listen, if you guys just extended the tax cuts that help the middle class, forget the tax cuts for the wealthy, forget the tax cuts for the big corporations, just the tax cuts that help middle class people, that would cut the price tag of this bill significantly, and you wouldn't have to do all these big cuts. And there are some voices in MAGA world, prominent voices like Steve Bannon and Josh Hawley, that are starting to say the same thing. Like, that would be smart policy, certainly, but also smart politics for them. And so we're just doing everything we can to hammer them. But the bulk, I think, of the Republican conference in the House is sort of still stuck in the old mode of thinking of every tax cut is a good tax cut, no matter how rich the recipient is. And we've got to get them off of that and make them feel some pain if they go forward with it.
So you're on the House Committee on Homeland Security. Do you support the proposed 65% increase? That would be $42 billion increase in Homeland Security.
Well, I just opposed the budget reconciliation bill that came through the Homeland Committee last week. And let me be clear, as a member of the Homeland Security Committee, I understand we need strong border security. And I am all for saying that people who are here illegally, who commit crimes or are a danger to society, should forfeit the right to be in this country. And I would support more border funding ultimately because, listen, I've been to the southern border, and the people who work down there trying to keep the border secure have a tough job and are stretched thin, and they deserve resources. All of that being said, what the Trump administration has been doing the last few months goes far beyond just securing the border. I mean, they are detaining and deporting people who have been accused of no crime, who in some cases are here legally as green card holders or as students, and are shipping them to foreign prisons with no due process, illegally and in defiance of court orders. They've even deported U.S. citizen children who were undergoing cancer treatment. None of this makes our country safer. This is just chaos. And by the way, at the same time that they're doing this, they let in the Tate brothers, these MAGA influencers who were being held on charges of sex trafficking in Romania. So what message does that send? If you are a MAGA influencer that's been accused of sex trafficking and abuse against women, you get a free ride into the United States, but we're going to deport kids with cancer who are U.S. citizens? It's insane.
We'll have more with Congressman Seth Magaziner after a quick break.
When you want to go beyond the headlines, let me recommend Rhode Island PBS Weekly. Rhode Island PBS Weekly is an award-winning news magazine broadcast that gives you the full story, powered by investigative journalism and narrative storytelling. New episodes of Rhode Island PBS Weekly drop Sundays at 7:30 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS. Watch past episodes at ripbs.org/weekly. That's ripbs.org/weekly.
On that point of due process, Trump was just on NBC's Meet the Press, and he was asked whether U.S. citizens and non-citizens both deserve due process as laid out in the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. He said, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. What do you make of that?
You don't have to be a lawyer to know that the answer is yes. I mean, it has been adjudicated throughout our country's history that constitutional rights do apply to anyone on U.S. soil, regardless of whether they're U.S. citizens or not. That includes the First Amendment and it includes the Fifth Amendment. Look, taking a step back here, people who are here illegally who pose a real threat should forfeit the right to be here. Absolutely. But we have this thing called due process. And due process exists so that people are not imprisoned or otherwise punished by accident. What we've seen already from the Trump administration is that they have admitted that they have deported people to a foreign prison in El Salvador by mistake. Only because of their own stubbornness do they refuse to correct those mistakes. We're not saying that you can't deport people who are violent or are gang members or what have you. We're saying you've got to have due process to make sure that you're not accidentally locking up innocent people in horrific conditions.
Another area you pointed out that where the Trump budget would have an increases for the military, and some of those increases could benefit Elon Musk by, for example, a new missile defense shield and a renewed campaign for U.S. space dominance. Do you see a conflict of interest there?
Yes. I mean, obviously, the kind of crony capitalism that we're seeing out of the Trump administration is just off the charts. Yet no bid contracts to Elon Musk. Elon Musk, by the way, going in and rooting through people's personal data in government databases is another huge conflict. But it's one of many. I'm actually going to be putting in a bill in the next week or so to do something about this other grift that the president has come up with where he sues U.S. media companies and takes personal settlements from those lawsuits. Like that is bribery, right? So companies like ABC and Meta/Facebook, he'll sue them with like a frivolous lawsuit. Those companies want to curry favor with him because he regulates them. And so they settle, quote unquote, the lawsuit and put millions of dollars into his pocket. Like that is just like next level grift. So I'm putting in a bill in the next week or so, along with Glenn Ivey, a member of Congress from Maryland, to put a stop to that. The Donald Trump meme coin is a whole other source of grift.
Or Melania too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't know who is buying this Trump cryptocurrency and putting money directly into his pocket. Is it, foreign individuals? Is it people who have business before the government? Like the corruption we've seen from this administration is just next level. And by the way, I'm not just pointing fingers at the other side here. Like I think we in Congress need to make sure that we do the right thing too, which is why I'm also the lead sponsor of a bill to ban members of Congress from trading stocks, which is another long-time loophole in the ethics rules that need to be closed.
Yeah, bring us up to date on that. I mean, your predecessor, Jim Langevin, had been pretty active in stock trading while in Congress. And so what's wrong with that, and where does this bill stand?
Members of Congress trading stocks is a problem for two reasons. One, when people are elected to Congress, we should be making decisions on how to vote based on what we think is right for the country, not what is good for our own personal investment accounts. And so if we're voting on whether to regulate an industry or fund a company with a government contract, we should just be doing it based on what's right for the people, not what's right for our own personal finances. Second, members of Congress have access to all kinds of inside information, what might or might not be in a bill, for example. That creates an opportunity for insider trading that is hugely unfair. And so I've been a big supporter, as long as I've been in Congress, of banning members of Congress from trading stocks. The original lead sponsor of the bill who kind of started this push was a representative named Abigail Spanberger from Virginia. She retired last year to run for governor down there, and she passed the bill off to me, so I'm the lead sponsor of it now. I think we're actually going to get it done maybe this Congress.
This year?
I am very optimistic. We've got a good bipartisan group. Just in the last 3 weeks, first, Hakeem Jeffries came out in favor of it. Hakeem, our Democratic leader in the House, was the first leader of either party in either chamber ever to come out in favor. A week later, Donald Trump came out in favor and said that he would sign the bill. There's a number of House Republicans who I'm working with who are supportive as well. So at this point, those of us who are most engaged on this issue, we're meeting weekly, and we are going to get this to the floor one way or another. I am very motivated by this, and everyone else in our group is as well.
So Navin Salem, CEO of Adesha Nutrition, just sent out an email saying that more than 120,000 boxes of the peanut paste that she makes for starving children have been sitting in her Rhode Island warehouse since February. She said the product's already been paid for by American taxpayers, but she can't ship it anywhere until she gets the okay from Jeremy Lewin, a 28-year-old acting director of the State Department's Office of Foreign Assistance. but he refuses to meet with her. What do you make of that?
Well, this is something that is just so incredibly frustrating. For those of you who don't know, who are listening, there's a factory in North Kingstown, Rhode Island called Adhesia that makes a product called Plumpy Nut. It is a nutritional paste that is used to treat children who are starving, children with malnutrition. And over the last decade plus, 25 million kids around the world have had their lives saved by this product made right here in Rhode Island. Under the Trump administration, the shipments have been stopped because the bulk of this is paid for by the federal government. Now, what's especially frustrating about this is the Trump administration has said that they intend to continue this program. Even as they gut USAID, Marco Rubio,
Musk was
Elon
on
Musk,
Twitter saying, I'll take care of that.
Yep, Marco Rubio, same thing. So this isn't about getting the administration to change their policy. We need them to just deliver on their stated policy. I've made the decision to speak on the House floor on this topic every single day that we are in session until this aid is restored. In the House, we don't have the ability to filibuster like they do in the Senate. A filibuster is where a senator can speak until they keel over. We can't do that in the House, but we do have the right to speak for a couple of minutes on any topic every day. And so every day I'm going to speak out on this until that funding is restored. This is the right thing to do, certainly morally, but I also think those of us in the Rhode Island delegation feel an added sense of responsibility because of the Rhode Island connection. So, in addition to myself, I know Gabe and Jack and Sheldon have also been very vocal on this issue, and we will continue to be until the administration keeps its word, gets these shipments going again, starts making new orders, and saves the lives of these kids. But every day counts, because every day that this stuff is sitting in a warehouse in Rhode Island is a day when thousands of kids are unnecessarily wasting away.
As the Trump administration has been dismantling the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, that funds these programs, they're saying they reviewed foreign aid programs and found many are not in the national interest. What do you say to that?
Look, I'm all for going through programs one by one to see which ones make sense and which ones don't. Like, I'm a former state treasurer, so I know that government should be efficient. All of that being said, the way that the administration has gone about this is insane and just cruel. You don't need to shut everything down while you are reviewing which programs you want to keep and which programs you want to cancel. And in this case, the administration is saying that they intend to continue delivering emergency food aid around the world, but they have it stopped. Why? Because they're doing some sort of vague review of the whole system? Like, that's just not necessary.
In March, Channel 12 reported that you won't move into the congressional district that you represent, although you had said you would. So why not? Don't you like Twin Oaks?
I do. I do. I go there a lot. No, listen, this is a situation where my family's situation changed. So my wife got a job that requires her to commute to Cambridge. We live close to the train station. She has almost a 2-hour commute as it is. We also had a new baby, which we were not expecting. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And so, it just doesn't make sense for our family to move at this time. I live 1 mile away from the district line. I haven't heard anyone suggest that living 1 mile from the line impacts my ability to do my job at all. I show up every day. I fight for Rhode Island's 2nd congressional district and everyone in it. That is unchanged. That will continue. At the same time that, like any family, we have to make sure that both spouses are able to do their jobs.
And do you plan to run for re-election next year?
Yes.
Representative Magaziner, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Rhode Island Report is a production of the Boston Globe in collaboration with Rhode Island PBS. Today's episode was produced by Megan Hall. Audio mixing and mastering by Marissa Ewing of Hemlock Creek Productions. Our music is from APM. Be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'm Ed Fitzpatrick. See you next week.
Looking to binge watch all your favorite PBS shows? You need Rhode Island PBS Passport. Masterpiece, Antiques Roadshow, Rhode Island PBS Weekly, and many more. Watch them all, anytime, and from any streaming device. Learn more about this member benefit at ripbs.org/passport. That's ripbs.org/passport.